Disney's classic animated feature, The Little Mermaid, is the latest to receive a live-action remake. But whilst previous reimaginings have faced some pretty full-on criticism, The Little Mermaid seems to be getting it the worst. But why? Well, at first it was the announcement that Halle Bailey would be starring as Ariel, but now it seems that it is actually Melissa McCarthy's casting as Ursula the Sea Witch that has sparked the biggest controversy. So what the heck is going on? It turns out that Ursula as a character has a pretty complicated creative origin. So let's get into the controversial inspiration behind Melissa McCarthy's Ursula. Let me break it down for you. People were pissed when Halle, who's black, was cast. An expected reaction came from idiots online, saying that casting an African-American person was unfaithful to the character, accusing the choice of being woke, which now, as a term, has basically lost any meaning. Like, come on guys, Ariel is a mermaid, she isn't real. Her most important physical feature is that she has a fishtail, not what color her skin is. Even if it really bothers you, just pretend that mermaids are just racist against humans and not each other, see? It's that easy to justify. God. Anyway, by all accounts, Halle is an incredibly talented singer too, which is also a pretty important skill for a performer in a musical to have, so it seems like her casting was a pretty good choice. Now, the controversy around Halle has more or less settled down, as the issue is pretty straightforward. But then, the news of Melissa McCarthy's casting as Ursula has brought about even more controversy because it involves a hotly debated topic: drag. Now at the moment, things are incredibly hostile towards drag performers, as well as the broader LGBT community. The community has seen a lot of baseless accusations of indoctrination or grooming of children in recent years. This is largely due to a combination of extreme right-wing conservatives pushing a religiously motivated agenda, as well as a series of bad faith grifters who are using the anger of bigots to make themselves a lot of money. These people are using the fear of children being exposed to the trans community as a justification for some of the most oppressive anti-trans laws that a Western democracy has ever seen. So what does this have to do with Melissa McCarthy as a made-up sea witch? A lot, actually. See, the original design for Ursula was based on a famous drag queen from the 60s, Divine. Well, maybe famous isn't the right word. Infamous is probably better. Divine was an American actor, singer, and drag queen who worked closely with John Waters and helped him make his countercultural masterpiece, Pink Flamingos. The film stars Divine, who is the filthiest person alive and is confronted by a jealous couple who tries to steal her title. Pink Flamingos ran with the tagline, "An exercise in poor taste," which is a massive understatement. The movie is notorious for doing everything in its power to gross out the audience. And I mean everything. The film infamously ends with Divine eating dog crap, real dog crap. Ew! I can't stress how gross this movie is. So how does this movie influence The Little Mermaid? Well, the animators wanted Ursula to be someone who was larger than life, and that is definitely Divine. This isn't just speculation, by the way. Multiple members of the production team have confirmed as much. Divine was such a massive part of the counterculture of the 60s and 70s and left a huge impact on the community because she was just so absurd and over the top. Now, I don't want you coming away from this thinking that being disgusting is all there is to drag. Being gross was Divine's signature. Divine's goal with the character was making fun of all of society's worst fears about the LGBT community. You're meant to be grossed out by the persona, that's the point, because drag uses exaggeration as a form of expression, and is meant to make us think about gender and other social signifiers. Divine passed away suddenly in 1988, 3 weeks after she was starred as Edna Turnblad in the original comedy version of Hairspray. In fact, it was Divine's portrayal of the character that led to why the role is normally played by a man in drag. John Travolta famously played the role in the musical version of the film. Now, just to be clear, drag isn't the same as being trans. Since this is a very complicated issue, I will try to put it as simply as I can. Drag is a persona that is part of an artistic performance that sends up gendered signifiers, whereas being trans is identifying with the gender that is different to the one you were assigned at birth, so you can be a drag performer without being trans, and you can also be a trans person without being in drag. While Divine, as a drag persona, was a woman, Divine often spoke about the fact that they were not trans, despite being known by their stage name in their private life. So the fact that Ursula is inspired by a drag performer but being played by a cis woman is part of why McCarthy's casting is controversial. However, another thing to consider is what it would say to have the villain of your film be a man in drag. Kind of sends a terrible message and really goes against the central theme of the movie that revolves around a mermaid wanting to become a human. At the same time, though, a lot of Divine's closest friends and colleagues have said that they are sure that he would have loved to play Ursula, which honestly would have been great. Because here's the thing, these inspirations are more than just visual and actually hold a significant thematic importance, especially when you consider the role that Ursula plays in the story. See, Ursula's deal with Ariel, giving her human legs in exchange for her voice, can be seen as a play on the performative nature of gender in social interaction, which in a way is kind of at the core of drag performance. Her iconic song, Poor Unfortunate Souls, is kind of a performance about performance. Ursula literally tells Ariel that even without her voice, she will be able to make Eric fall in love with her. So in that way, it feels really appropriate that Divine has such a huge inspiration. I mean, the whole premise of the movie is a mermaid who feels like she doesn't fit in and wants to be something different. I mean, obviously it's not a perfect allegory, but like, the essence of the film is be true to yourself and what feels right on the inside, which is a pretty standard lesson in children's entertainment. So rallying against that idea seems pretty embarrassing, right? I mean, does anyone really think the movie should end with Ariel living unhappily as a mermaid? When King Triton forbids Ariel from getting involved with the human world, we as an audience see that as a bad thing, right? Do I really have to explain the moral of a kid's movie? I guess so, because at the end of the day, what's the problem? Ursula was voiced by a cis woman in the animated film The Late Great Pat Carroll, and at the time, no one complained about it. But with such a focus on trans rights at the moment, I suppose it's fair enough that people are trying to be on the lookout for misrepresentation. But this is all happening at a time when a ton of US states are passing bills to try and limit drag performances, and really shows how little these people pushing against it understand. Because their main argument is on the effect the sexualized content has on children. Drag isn't inherently sexual, just like trans people aren't. Like, one of the most universally adored family movies of all time, Mrs. Doubtfire, is about a man in drag. But here's the thing, this isn't really an argument that's being made in good faith. I'm sure some people actually believe that drag is a threat to children, but those people have been tricked. There are a lot of opportunists out there, preying on fears and misunderstandings in order to push an outdated social hierarchy. The only way that they're able to smuggle their bigotry into public discussion is through the lens of children's safety, because there is no evidence anywhere of a systematic correlation between trans people, drag performers, and child abuse. It's just a lie used to justify continued attacks on marginalized groups. McCarthy has previously channeled Divine in a photo shoot for Entertainment Weekly, recreating some iconic shots from Pink Flamingos. She has said she is trying to honor the legacy of Divine and drag performers in general. I just hope to do every incredible drag queen proud and Divine proud, just to give that same attitude, to give it your all, to throw it out there, no apologies, do it your way. McCarthy said, I wanted to give Divine everything she was due. So I say, more power to her. Paying respect to the art form and acknowledging its history is what she should be doing when taking on a role. So there you have it, the controversial inspiration behind Melissa McCarthy's Ursula. And if you're upset by that, suck it up, snowflakes.